But yeah, all of the books starring the Eighth Doctor are on archive.org because they're all out of print, and they're great.
Wait, so
they're
the
wild,
American Doctor Who TV movie is canon?
Oh, yeah, that's the worst part. Is because they wanted to legitimize it, they made it canon. So the Seventh Doctor from the old days starts the movie, dies, it regenerates into the Eighth Doctor, which was supposed to be the one for the American show. And
right, because because Chris Eccleston is the ninth, right?
Yeah.
So this was in between when the show was on hiatus in England, basically, before it came back, and now that American thing is actually part of the canon.
Yeah. So prior to the 11th Doctor, they were always expecting them to just decanonize it at any moment because he had only ever been in a show not made by the BBC, but then also had been in all of these books and audio plays and everything in the interim. Like, he was the main Doctor for like 15 years. So they didn't want to just legitimize him. And so on the first episode of the 11th Doctor's run, he does a montage where he asks the aliens to like look him up, and so you see a montage and it goes through all of the Doctors, and it includes him. So at that point, he was finally officially canonized. But it's wild. It's great.
That is stupid, but actually, I like that.
Yeah,
it's like, no, fuck
that's
you.
Basically,
that's canon.
my whole
deal with it.
That's basically my whole love with Doctor Who. Is there's so many things that you could tell they were making up as they went along, because they had no idea that people would keep coming back for this shit for 50 fucking years. And so there's so many things that you just have to live with because they did a throwaway joke back 60 years ago, and you just have to deal with it because it's canon now. And I love that shit. Welcome to RPG Book Club Movie Nights, the podcast where we watch a movie that's tangentially related to a video game we've recently played and talk about how it makes us feel. I am Sam Allman.
Hi, I'm Elias Sailor Eli Warren.
And I'm like, Maddie Webbin, dudes.
And today we will be talking about Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure from 1993? No, 1988. It's 1988, and it takes place in 1987. Yeah, it's old, which is cool.
Yeah, it feels 80s. It's just funny because I thought I looked it up directly before watching, and it was 93. So never mind. I didn't. Yeah. I was wrong. That's weird that I have that memory in my head, though.
Yeah,
explicitly
it's
incorrect.
Great. Yeah, because there's a lot of time travel movies that we could have picked for Chrono Trigger. But Bill and Ted's the good one, so we picked that.
Bill and Ted's is great, and also I haven't seen it since I was very small. So
yeah,
I was
me too.
Just like, there were other options, but I was like, let's just do Bill and Ted, and everyone else, these two were just like, yeah, sure.
It helps that Bill and Ted is $1 on YouTube because,
yeah,
like that's
free.
That's
if
cheap.
You steal it, don't steal.
But yeah, so we don't have game music to like segue into things, so let's just start talking about this darn old thing. Did you have anything you wanted to say about your week, since this has been graduated to a full episode this time around?
I have a couple of things about my week, TBH.
Go for it.
So first of all, this has been a very eventful week for everybody for the same reasons that last week was eventful. There sure are a lot of current events happening.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, I've been getting really involved with protesting and stuff the last week. I was at a big one on Monday. That was student led. It was a big march. And I don't know if y'all heard. Actually, I'm sure y'all heard. It's happening all over the country. But there's like curfews being put in place everywhere. And in my town, they're like on Monday at 2 p.m. They're like, yeah, there's going to be a curfew at 8 p.m. And the protest was at like 7, right? So I left because I I have not been in a potentially arresty situation before, and wasn't sure how to. I felt like I didn't know how to deal with that, so I went ahead and went home. But sure enough, at 7:40, 20 minutes before the curfew started, they started tear gassing people, and they arrested like 100 people, and the people they arrested were right in the spot where I was standing before I left. So that was fun. I definitely would have had to go to jail. And then 2 nights later, there was an intentional fuck your curfew protest that I was all geared up to go to. Actually, I was with a group. I even emailed my boss, who was pretty chill and legit. And if I was just like, hey, I can't come to work because I'm literally in jail, she wouldn't be mad. So I was prepared to email my boss. I had my supplies. But then some bullshit happened that I won't go into. So I was not at that either. I was on the sidelines doing supply deliveries. But it turns out that nothing ended up happening at that one. There were so many people that the cops just let it happen, even though they were definitely breaking the curfew, unlike 2 days ago. So it wasn't the same. Funny enough, that might sound like a victory, but as the next couple of days went by, we started to think about it, and we're like, that was really good PR for the cops. Like that's a PR stunt, right?
Yeah.
Like, look, we were doing violence, but now we're not doing violence, right? And I'm sure you've seen. There's
a great papyrus quote for that. Sorry, go on.
And you would see things like the mayor made a tweet that was like, I'm so proud of my city. And I was like, bitch, we were literally like she's like trying to say like it was because of her that this peaceful protest that went all night happened. Right? Or like, even though it wasn't, because she's the person we're protesting against. So I'm sure y'all seen the last couple of days, the whole situation's taken a weird turn where all the libs are trying to like co-opt the movement and say like, yeah, let's all come together and like take the teeth out of it. And I think that that's a really interesting and scary development. And I think that if you go to the website socialistcall.com, that's a publication that me and some of my friends write for. I haven't written for it, but my friends do, and I probably will at some point. They have a write-up of those 2 nights, and it describes the difference between the two, and it's very, very interesting, like conceptually seeing how Wednesday was different than Monday in a way that is kind of weird and concerning. So that was my very eventful week. And last night I watched a double feature of Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And guess what? Those are great movies.
Yeah, they are.
Raiders of the Lost Ark is actually not as good as I remember. It's about 50 times better than I remember. It's it's just a goddamn masterpiece of a movie. Last Crusade is not as good. But it did come out the same year as Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. So there you go. Those movies came out in 81, 84, and 89, respectively. You notice that double feature skipped Temple of Doom, the best movie in the series. But frankly, that makes sense. If you're going to do 2, 1 and 3 was the way to go with it, right? Because they're very similar tonally. 2 is its own special thing. So that's what I did. Did a lot of politics, did a lot of protesting, did not do a lot of work because my hours have dried up, and watched 2 great movies with my friends last night at the drive-thru. Nice. What about you, Eli?
I played a lot of Final Fantasy. Nothing new is going on for me. Actually, one thing I wanted to bring up, the Final Fantasy XIV RP community has actually been doing a lot of PR for Black Lives Matter kind of stuff.
Good. Glad to hear that.
They've got a big donation thing that they're doing. And last night, one of my RP partners and I took our characters on a date to a punk rock show that these people were holding on the Balmung server. It was super fun. And at the end, someone actually went up and yelled out of character about like, we're not blind to the roots of where punk came from. We just want to say that, we hope that everybody is aware of what's going on and is doing their part to help out as much as possible. And a bunch of us yelled out Black Lives Matter, and they linked to the donation thing that they're doing. So that was really, really cool.
Nice.
They're really doing their part to contribute while, playing a video game.
That's dope.
Yeah. Yeah, other than that, not a whole fucking lot going on.
Nice. Yeah, I'm on call again. I probably should have warned you guys that I was on call before we started recording.
Lol.
Yeah, I'm on call again. So it's been a really breezy on call weekend, knock on wood. But yesterday I got like 4 completely unrelated pages all at once. And so it was like, went from, oh, hey, I haven't gotten a page for my whole first 2 days on call to, shit, I'm underwater and I have to suddenly do like 3 hours of work all at the same time in 15 minutes. So it was a fun time. But other than that, I just been watching Ghibli movies because VRV gave me a free month of HBO Max. So we've been watching Studio Ghibli movies. Watched a lot of Doctor Who with Scar because she got really into it. Surprisingly, she doesn't like Jodie Whittaker that much. She's like, oh, cool. It's a girl doctor, and like she dresses up like the girl doctor and has the girl doctor on her wall. But every time she wants to watch David Tennant. So she has taste, I guess. But yeah, no, that's about it. My week was pretty
no amount of girl power
uneventful.
No amount of girl power will distract from bad writing.
Yeah. Oh, also, and you'll hopefully we don't have as many technical difficulties as we did last week, so you'll hear this episode in a timely manner. But the Black Lives Matter itch.io bundle is gigantic. You get 750 games for a minimum donation of $5.
Oh yeah, I need to do that.
And I picked that up, so I will be playing A Short Hike and Night in the Woods and all of Super Blizzard stuff. Definitely check those out. It's 10S, Palace of Woe, and Water's Fine. Those 3 are all in there, and they're magnificent. Super Blizzard is really good.
Also,
I picked that up as well.
Oh, nice. I haven't bought it yet, but I'm gonna. I'll probably pay like $10. I can't afford too much.
I paid slightly over the average donation price.
Oh, that reminds me. I need to get reimbursed for that coffee I bought for the March. Because I was obviously I could. They were like, "Can you cover the coffee?" And I was like, "Honestly, I wanted to support the protest, but I don't think I can afford $200 worth of coffee." And they're like, "Okay, we'll just pay what you can and we'll reimburse you for the rest." And I was like, all right, sounds good. I will get the coffee. I can drive a car, but I can't pay for the coffee. Sorry. Protests, you gotta have supplies. Anyway, what was I going to say? Friend of the show, Bernard, that, most people listening to the show are probably familiar with. Also, would mention if he were here that itch.io bundle also includes not just games, but a lot of really cool you can use them any way you want if you buy them, like open like use license or whatever. Game dev tools. It comes with some programs and platforms and engines you can use for game development. It comes with a whole bunch of like music and art assets. That's the word I'm looking for. Assets, and that's included too. So if you're interested in game development, it's just like, hey, here's a bunch of art and music you can use, and it was just thrown in there with the other bazillion games that you got for $10.
Yeah, there's also, and I kind of think that we should do this like live on Twitch, the 3 of us. But there is a Persona-inspired tabletop game that I think is GM-less that's included in there, which I read a lot of the source book, and it seems pretty dope. So, there's a lot of cool tabletop stuff in there, too.
Yeah, I forgot there's a lot of tabletop stuff, too. So, basically, there's something for everybody, and if you're even, the thing is, you shouldn't really, I mean, the point of it is to raise money, right? So I feel like everybody who's listening to this, even if frankly you're not sure if you're going to play any of the games, just go do it. Just go, donate as much as you can. And hey, later, sift through those zillions of things you just purchased and maybe you'll like some of it. But the donation is the more important thing. So yeah, everyone should go do that. Pay as much as you can.
Absolutely.
I think I have more games now than I can possibly play in my entire lifetime.
It's so many.
I'm going to need to become a vampire just so I can play all these games.
Yes.
Also for other reasons.
I really hope that somehow, some way, either the current American system has completely burned to the ground or fix itself by the time that I retire, so that I can actually do a thing called retire, so that I'll have all this time to play video games.
Well, that's another reason that I would like to become a vampire, because then it won't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, the idea of retirement seems so foreign at this point. But who knows? If the economy, if the world essentially is the same way it is now in 50 years, I'm never going to be able to retire. Luckily or unluckily, the contradictions, they are a heightened, and one of the whole fundamental points of this kind of late capitalist neoliberal system that we have is that it is untenable. It can't keep going like this. It's got to go in one way or the other, either a good way or a bad way. So for better or worse, it probably, I actually find it very freeing, because it's nice to think that no matter what kind of plans I might make aren't going to happen. Whether it's for good or bad reasons, it's like, I don't have any say over where I end up in 15 years.
Yeah.
Maybe some people find that scary. I find it freeing.
Yeah. But also, I feel I should say, read any book except for Harry Potter. And buy no Harry Potter stuff.
For God's sake, read another book.
Yeah.
I will disclaimer it and say, read another book. You can, if you want to, you can read another book in addition to Harry Potter, because my problematic opinion is that those books are still really good. And obviously you got artist situation, and everyone's got their own response to that. But if you must read Harry Potter, at least also read another book for Pete's sake.
At least also read something else.
The least you can
actually, I've never done once, no reading Harry Potter. So
the best thing you can do,
fucking start now.
Well, the best thing you can do is just never read a book.
Yeah,
just never read any book.
Rico did nothing for nobody.
I agree. Reading is reactionary and counter-revolutionary, and you don't need to do it.
Yep.
No one should read. What we should do is watch movies. So let's talk about Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
It was truly excellent. It was a whole bunch of like the 80s-est fucking cheese that I have ever goddamn seen.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Let's real quick. Had all three of us seen the movie before?
I had seen it before.
You'd never seen it. All right.
Nope.
Sam, if I know you, I bet you not only seen it, but had seen it not too unrecently, and probably know it well. Is that correct?
So I actually
you can tell we don't read because we use words like unrecently.
Yes. But I haven't watched it in forever. I have more recently watched Bogus Journey, because Bogus Journey for some reason would pop up on like television more often. And so
really?
I remembered
my experience as a child,
I remembered the basic shape of this movie and the particular moments from Bogus Journey, but not a proper picture of either one.
That makes sense.
So it had been a hot minute.
Yeah.
But I did have a lot of Bill and Ted comic books in the 90s, so
I probably had not
There's
seen this
that.
movie since probably grade school. Going in, I was not even sure if I'd seen the whole thing all the way through, or if I'd just seen bits and pieces or seen it on TV. Though after watching it, I realized, no, I had in fact seen like every single scene. I was like, yeah, I remember this scene, right? And by the end, I was like, okay, yeah, I had seen this entire movie. But definitely way back in the recesses of the memory. It definitely is an excellent adventure. So, Sam, are you leading off like usual style?
Sure. I didn't take any notes because, I mean, it's a pretty basic movie, but we can just make our way through it and riff our way through it and all of that jazz. So
yeah, I was kind of taking notes, but you're right. So my notes are more just like, here's some funny lines. So
yeah,
whatever.
So
this movie's got a very iconic and interesting start. How does it start?
Yeah, so it starts with George Carlin from the future saying, the future is great, but it's in danger because of the two great ones. So I need to go back in time and save them. And I think it does, like, it shows like something Bill and Ted related, like at the very, like as part of it.
It does.
Where you're like right away, you're like, why the hell are Bill and Ted the quote unquote great ones?
Well, right off the bat, it starts with some cool CG and some banging rock, some banging like prog prog rock music, and it's this weird like jewel is descending into a weird room. You don't know what it is. It's just like abstract geometry. And then, and then our boy shows up and explains that in the future, I think an important thing is that in the future, everything's amazing.
Yeah.
Humanity exists in a perfect, excellent utopia. One thing he says, he's like, bowling scores are up, mini golf is down. and we've got the best water parks of any the best water parks of any planet in the galaxy, or something like that. So basically, like, we are in a utopian future. But yes, the great ones who shepherded this, who led to this future, are about to stray. We got to go back in time and fix it. And what happens is we get a picture of what essentially looks sort of like an album cover, and it says Wild Stallions, and that's the name of the band, but it's spelled WYLDSTALLYNS. So to me, that's Wild Stallions. Not Wild
Stallions. I was reading it as Wild Stallins.
But they do. Bill and Ted
my favorite communist band.
Bill and Ted do pronounce it Wild Stallions. But yeah, obviously I could play on like Leonard Skinner, right? So it's just this stupid fucking album cover with these stupid fucking dipshits on it. And then you smash cut to those dipshits in their room. Oh, and this is in the year 2688. So then we're smash cut 600 years in the past to 1998. Actually, that's 700 years in the past to 1988. Yes, to 1988. To see Bill S. Preston and Theodore Logan in their room jamming. That's the intro. I actually watched it twice because of a problem.
You've mispronounced his name. It's Bill S. Preston Esquire.
No, it's William S. Preston Esquire.
Yes, and Theodore Logan, who goes by Ted. Bill S. Preston is played by who?
Oh, I had it.
Alex Winter, who did not become super famous, even though he does a great job. What's his thing? Looks like basically nothing. Oh, looks like he's a screenwriter and director to today. And he's active. Nice. Look, anytime someone does art that I think is really good, or frankly, even art that I don't think is good, I always hope they still have a career. Because it's sad when someone like can't succeed in their career, right? So, scrolling real quickly, he's been directing a film every couple years for the last 20 years.
Nice.
Good for him. Good job, Alex Winter, even though I've never heard of you. But the other character, of course, is everyone's favorite tiny baby boy child, Keanu Reeves.
He is immortal.
Yay. He really is, man.
How do these guys talk?
They talk like surfer dudes.
Yeah, like the most exaggerated California accent you can possibly imagine. Oh yeah, it takes place in San Dimas, which I don't know where that is. Where's San Dimas, California?
I think it's a fake place.
No, it
might be fake.
It's in LA County.
You're a fake place then.
Okay, so it's to the east of like it's a suburb to the east of like LA, basically.
Okay.
Interesting.
And so they not only talk like surfers, they're all like really positive about everything. And this is crucial to the movie, that there's not a negative word that comes out of their mouth except for one of the worst negative words that come out of anyone's mouth.
They think that everything...
It's a different time.
They think that everything is excellent.
Excellent.
Whenever something upsetting happens, they immediately bounce back and are just like, awesome.
All right.
These guys are just fucking thrilled about everything.
It's so good.
They're obviously like... what am I trying to say? They're obviously like the same sort of character as, like, for example, Beavis and Butthead. Funny enough, they predate Beavis and Butthead by a hot minute. Okay, this is gonna sound stupid. I always feel like I should know this, but seriously, this predates Wayne's World too? Wow, that's wild. It so much feels like it's a spoof of something like Wayne's, or not a spoof. It feels so much like it's inspired by those things, but apparently it predates both of them. That's wild. I knew it predated Beavis and Butthead, but I did not know that it predated Wayne's World. Wow. Those were both 90s, by the way. So yeah, they're super positive. Everything's awesome. They take it in stride. We learned that they have a band. They're important plot point. They are bad at guitar.
Yeah,
they're so bad.
That's actually an important
they have a
plot character point, that they're bad.
Not in the way that the Power Glove is so bad. They're just straight up bad.
This first scene, they're actually like, we need to learn how to play guitar first. And they're like, no, that's too hard. We need Eddie Van Halen to play guitar for us. Like, but he won't ever play with us unless we have an awesome music video. Well, we can't have an awesome music video unless we know how to play guitar.
They've got a chicken and egg problem on
It's actually 4 steps. We got to shoot a great video. We can't shoot a great video unless we have Eddie Van Halen. Van Halen's not going to play with us unless we have really great guitars. What's the point of getting great guitars if we can't fucking play them? Okay, we should learn to play, but and then somehow it's like, oh no, it's he's not going to play with us unless we can play good. Well, how can we play good without good guitars? Well, how are we going to be able to afford good guitars without a great music video? But the funny thing is, instead of them being,
you gotta admire these guys, like, seriously, like, unrealistically positive attitude.
Well, that's the thing. Instead of being discouraged by this loop, they go through the whole loop and they're finally like, but in order to afford the fancy guitar, we're going to need to make an awesome video. And the other one's like, awesome. And then they start making the video. Like, they don't realize, they're so dumb, they don't even realize that they're caught in a vicious cycle. They're just like, cool.
Yeah, let's fucking do it.
It's so good.
Yeah, so they're doing that, and
ignorance is truly bliss.
I feel like there was one more thing I was going to mention there. Whatever, that's it. So then, like, they go to school, right?
Mm-hmm. So they go to school the next day, and who'd have thunk it? These people are dumb.
Some of the best dumb characters.
They're so good, and so they're like dumb in class. So that, like, it shows that they're dumb, but then they have to talk to the teacher afterwards.
History
and the teacher's
class.
like, look. History class. The teacher's like, look, you have failed everything, but because of the weight, how everything's weighted, if you get an A+ on your final oral report, you'll pass, and you can get the fuck out of my class, and I don't have to deal with you anymore. So I need you to do the report. And Bill and Ted have this great thing where they're like, yeah, we learned so much in your class, and they're just reading over his shoulder, and it's just like, we learned about all the great people, like Cleopatra and Socrates.
Genghis Khan.
No, he goes, Cleopatra and Genghis Khan and the Socratic method.
Yeah. Also, actually, the way this scene starts, it literally starts with the teacher being like, and who was that, Bill? And Bill's like,
it was Joan of Arc. It was Joan of Arc.
That's a little bit later. This is Napoleon. Although, spoiler. So Bill's like, so he's mid question. He's asked Bill a question, and he goes, because he died, and the teacher's like, so let me get this straight. The only two things you know about Napoleon are that he was a short guy who died, but Bill's too dumb to realize that that's bad, so he's like, yeah. And then this whole scene is just full of just them being dumb and not knowing anything. And I wrote down most of them, but they're also not important. So so they decide that they got to do a grade on this project, which is an oral report on, I'm going to see if I get this right. They have to report on personages of historical interest from different periods of world history. I think the teacher actually says 4, although later we see that it ends up being much more than 4. And they have to present, who they are, why they're important, and the most important thing is they have to say if those people saw San Dimas, California today, or they saw the modern world, what would they have to say about it? So that's the prompt for their project, which pretty good, pretty decent project idea from a pedagogical teaching standpoint. Not bad.
Yeah.
If I was teaching history, I might assign that. But yeah.
Yeah, and so they go home to Bill's house to study, and
oh god,
you meet Bill's stepmom, who was a senior when they were freshmen, so they know her and had a crush on her before she became his stepmom.
Yep.
So it's this super
and she's
weird,
hot,
awkward. She's smoking hot, and it's this super weird. Bill obviously has a thing for her set up, but his dad is so creepy old man constantly, and so Bill and Ted are in Bill's room trying to study. Missy comes in to ask if they need help. Dad comes in, sees Missy, and is like, Bill, I need you to leave. Go and go study somewhere else so that I can lay with this woman in your bed.
Yeah, he says, how about y'all get some snacks? Snack break, and they leave, and the dad closes the door, and Ted's like, dude, your dad's gonna make his move in your room, bro. Missy's very interesting actually, because she doesn't have a thing for Bill, but she very clearly likes Bill and Ted just because she's their age. She is a kid, and she doesn't act like their mom, she acts like an older sister. She helps them out on their adventures multiple times throughout the movie, right? She just helps them out the way that a girl a couple years older than you might help you out if you need some help, right? Even the way that she smiles at them, it's again, she's not flirting. She just identifies with their comrades, right? They're associates, they're friends. They're on the same level, which is weird because yes, she is his stepmom.
So they decide
Ted's dad is a big old fucking jerk.
Fuck that.
He's a cop.
Yeah, Ted's dad is a cop, and he tells this is the main tension in the movie. Ted's dad tells him that if he fails, apparently if he fails, he's going to literally flunk out of school, which is a thing that you often see in movies. I never understood how that actually worked. What the mechanics are of getting flunked out of school. Do you have to not go to school anymore? That's not really how our school system works. But back in the day, No Child Left Behind was passed, obviously, a decade and a half after the movie was made. So that changed things. Anyway, he's going to quote flunk out of school, which means his dad's going to make him go to military college and join the army in Alaska. Which, first of all, making your creative, stupid, maybe a little bit troubled child go to be in the military seems very mean, but also Alaska means they have to break up the band, so we understand that's probably the problem with the future timeline, is they probably have to have the band, right?
Yeah. And
That great band that they're in.
Yeah.
So after they're kicked out of Bill's room, they decide to go study at the gas station by asking the questions on their test to random people as they pass by.
Yeah, they're literally like,
I don't
hey,
know, I just work here.
yeah, they're like, hey, miss, when did the Mongols rule China? And she goes, I don't know, I just work here. And she walks inside, and they go, you want to go try the 7-Eleven?
Circle K is no good. Let's go to another convenience store.
So fucking funny. Let's just ask random people if they know the answers. But anyway,
so then suddenly, out of like a bolt from the blue, down comes a phone booth with antenna sticking out of the top, and who should walk out but our boy Rufus, George Carlin from the beginning,
looking kind of like a goddamn The Matrix and wearing extremely cool sunglasses.
Yes. And he's like, guys, I'm here to help you with your history report. And they're like, oh, do you know when the Mongols invaded China?
I love how they're like, they just saw a thing magically materialize from space, and they're just like, hey man, can you help us with our homework?
They got their priorities in order.
Yeah, they're completely unfazed.
And so Rufus is like, why don't you ask them? And they're like, what? And he's like, this is a time machine, yada yada yada. Which, real quick, I think this is the best place to bring it up. So this is a reference to Doctor Who.
Yeah, just
the original Bill and Ted
explicit
comic book. It is extremely explicit. However, like I was mentioning in the pre-show, Doctor Who didn't come to America until 1995's crappy TV movie, and people only barely knew about it then. And then it didn't like even get popular until a couple seasons into 2005. So that's like 15 plus years of pop culture that has referenced time traveling in a phone booth that are probably referencing Bill and Ted, not realizing that itself was a reference to Doctor Who.
Yeah,
and
I hadn't thought about that. And also, it just shows that people making this show or this movie are obviously fucking nerds who are aware of Doctor Who. You know, I guess they watch BBC. That's really funny.
It's funny too, because as soon as I saw that, I was like, is that a fucking TARDIS?
Yeah.
Although,
I don't even watch Doctor Who, but I know what the TARDIS is.
Although, unlike the TARDIS, hilariously, it's not bigger on the inside. Which I think is extremely funny. It's the same goddamn
size as a phone booth on the inside.
The Doctor just needs 2 people, and he has a whole huge room on the inside. Bill and Ted need 16 people, and they have to squeeze
they're all just crammed in there. Which, later they like literally can't all fit at once, which is extremely funny. While they're talking, and Rufus, that's the guy, future guy, Rufus is explaining the situation. Another TARDIS appears. And who is in it but Bill and Ted?
William S. Preston Esquire.
Yes. So Bill and Ted.
Which, if you don't know, Esquire is the title given to a lawyer.
Yep.
Bill is a terrible high school student. How is he a fucking lawyer?
Actually, I believe I read about the title Esquire one time. You're right that it means lawyer. But also, it's not like sir. Like, in order to be called sir in England, you have to be knighted, right? You can just call yourself Esquire. There's not, like, a rule about it or anything like that.
His parents just decided to give him that as his
guess.
title.
Maybe it was aspirational. But yeah, so, like, lawyers will just put that on their name to sound fancy. It's really
stupid. It sounds fancy as fuck.
It does sound
fancy.
So
these dudes obviously watch the BBC because in the United Kingdom, Esquire historically was a title of respect accorded to men of higher social rank, particularly members of the landed gentry above the rank of gentleman, but below the rank of knight. So it's more... It's more, we watch a lot of fucking Doctor Who.
He's some sort of British nobility in California who talks like a surfer dude and is incredibly dumb.
I love that. Hey, downwardly mobile. I connect with it. So yeah, they see themselves from the future. So Bill and Ted, different Bill and different Ted, wearing almost the same, but not quite clothing, stumble out and they're like, hey dudes, just the exact same, right? You'd think they'd be like frazzled or like changed from their adventure, but they're just the same dumbasses as before. And you're like, hey guys, y'all are about to go on an awesome adventure. They don't say anything important or interesting. And then they're basically just like, hey, trust me.
Oh no, they say something very important and interesting.
Well,
which
they're
is
about to,
if
yes.
you're yeah. Oh, okay.
I just meant they say a bunch of unimportant things for a bit, and then they get to the important thing. So they say a few important things, but fill me in if I miss one. First, they say you can trust this Rufus guy, and so definitely do what he says. It's going to be great, man. Bill and Ted from the present go and they're like, well, how do we know we can trust you? They're like, how do we know we can trust you? How do we even know that you're really us from the future? And they go, all right. No, Bill and Ted present go, or one of them says, if you're us, then what number are we thinking of right now? And the two from the future at the same time go, 69,
69,
dude. and the rest, and all of them at the same time are just like, nice. And they go, and they do a little air guitar thing. Other important things is, as they're leaving, future Ted is like, hey, give the princesses my love. And he goes, who are the princesses? And he goes, you'll see. And then also he says, Ted, don't forget to wind your watch. And Ted's like, huh? Okay, sure, thanks. So those are, I think, the important points of this conversation.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right?
That's all I remember.
Yeah.
So then future Bill and future Ted are like, all right, we got to finish our adventure. Bye.
Yeah, and so Rufus is like, obviously you can now trust me. Let's go and do your report. So they take him back to revolutionary France, where they see Napoleon. And Rufus is just like, so you can look around, see everything, write your report, and then let's go. And so Napoleon sees them and is like, holy shit, there's people like spying on our army or whatever. Let's go and get them. And they're like, we got to get out of here. So they all hop back into the TARDIS and leave. But importantly, Napoleon himself is running after them, and he like dives after their TARDIS and falls through the time vortex with them, and they come back to San Dimas. So Rufus is like, all right, that I've done my part. You guys have to be on your own from now on. Don't fuck up the timeline. I'm going to go back to the future. Here's the phone book that you can use to dial up any time you need to. I'm going to go. And so he goes away in the TARDIS, and then it comes back down empty. And then Napoleon falls out of the tree nearby, because he had came back with him to San Dimas. And so they pull Napoleon into their bedroom, and they tell their little brother to babysit Napoleon while they go and finish their report. And they get the idea, well, we already got one important historical dude. Why don't we get a bunch of important historical dudes, and we'll just go and get them all, and they can do the report for us. So they get back in their TARDIS, and they head off to Wild West times.
Also, it should be noted, weirdly enough, you'd think this movie would not do this. You'd think they would just have a huge plot hole that a lot of movies would do. But actually, they do acknowledge the fact that these characters are always speaking different languages. So every character that they're going to interact with speaks the language they should be speaking. So Napoleon is just speaking French. Later, like Genghis Khan is just speaking like ancient Mongolian. So none of them can understand what the fuck is going on. The only, I guess you could say it's inaccurate that all the characters that speak English intelligibly. because the medieval English characters would be speaking, of course, Old English, which is so different than modern English. It might not even be possible to communicate, but they just speak normal English in a fancy accent, right? But yeah, other than that, every time they interact with someone who isn't from an English-speaking country, they're like, we don't understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So the first place they go is to Wild West Times to find Billy the Kid, and I'm trying to think of anything important besides just funny. There's a lot of funny that happens.
Let's see. They get there. There's a big fight scene, which is extremely funny.
One thing that's super important that is established here, and it carries through the rest of the movie, is they're very respectful to these historical figures. So they call them by Mr. and their last name. They just don't realize they don't know anybody's last name. So he's Mr. the Kid, and then later it's Miss of Arc. And
also their strategy to this. It's not even like, let's go get Billy the Kid. It's literally they're just like, hey, our report needs something from Wild West Times. So they go back and they get there, and I think that one of them literally even says like, hey, are there any are there any personages of historical interest around here? So they're like, let's just wander around until someone important shows up. And Billy the Kid actually recruits them. Oh, go on.
Speaking of personages, it's important to note that Bill and Ted use extremely big words. They're just dumb while they say it. And it's not even like they use the words wrong. They're just dumb.
They just have weirdly big vocabulary sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. So instead of like them saying, are there any personages of historical import, is a big sentence, but no actual smart person would ask it. They just would be like, okay, we need to find Billy the Kid, or whatever.
Well, also, I do think they use that phrase. I think they use that phrase because that actually is the exact wording of their assignment, which is I think makes it even more funny. But yeah, no, they do that a lot throughout. For example, earlier when they're at the Circle K and all the crazy stuff happens and their future selves exist, they say what I think is an incredible line. They're like, strange things are afoot at the Circle K. But yeah, they have some dumb adventures with Billy the Kid, and then they leave. And also, since they do speak English, they are able to it is implied that Billy the Kid is pretty aware of what's going on, which is nice. He ends up being a very helpful character later, unlike some of the other characters. Then they go to ancient Rome, right?
Greece.
Oh yeah,
I thought Greece. Yeah, he's Greek.
Yeah.
Socrates is Greek.
I get my Greco-Roman stuff mixed up. Guess what? Because I find it very boring.
Yes, it is quite boring. But so they go back to find Socrates, and and so they're like, oh, he's one of the greatest philosophizers of all history. We need to philosophize with him so he can come with us. But they don't speak ancient Greek, so they can't understand. And so Ted is like, all we are is dust in the wind. and Socrates is like, what? And so Bill grabs some like dust and he's like picks it up and he's like, you, me, and just blows it. He's like, wind. And Socrates is like, yes, the days of a man's life are like the sands in an hourglass.
What he says is, like sands through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives. And that is a quote from a famous soap opera called Days of Our Lives.
Oh,
I
that's
know that
amazing.
because my mother has watched Days of Our Lives since like before I was born.
That's really funny.
That's amazing. I'm a Bold and the Beautiful fan, so I don't have time for two.
Oh, my mom has time for all of them now. She watches all the big four soaps, and she still talks about the ones that have been canceled, like Another World and Santa Barbara. Those were her favorites.
I've come out and said this back when did I talk about liking soap operas before I left, or was that a more recent development?
You've given us like a very elaborate spiel on soap operas at some point. I've forgotten it, but you have.
It may
but
have,
you can say it again if you want.
Soap operas are actually like really freaking good, and it's really hard to do any job as a day job, and soap operas is the acting of a version of a day job, and these people put in work every single day, and it's actually phenomenal. And in a world where like you're looking for stuff to binge, like having a guaranteed cliffhanger every night 19 minutes is a great way to like pass the time, and you'll never like notice that, oh, I watched 600 episodes today. Sorry, Summer is texting me, and her text tone is Cool Boogie.
Cool Boogie. Wait, Cool Boogie. I can't. Is that from SSX?
That's Legend of Dragoon. That's Maru's.
That's right. Thing. Yeah, I remember now.
But I can't put my phone on silent because I'm on call, so I apologize for that.
My mom discovered an old soap opera not too long ago that she fell in love with called Dark Shadows.
Dark Shadows is good.
It's a like soap opera with classic movie monsters, essentially. Like there's vampires and shit, and she's just madly in love with this show. Like when it first started, it was in black and white.
Wow.
And there's like 300 some episodes.
Yeah, there are. They broke episode 7,000 on Bold and the Beautiful.
Good fucking Lord.
Nice.
Yeah, but because Bold and the Beautiful has committed to staying a half hour with 19 minutes because it's daytime television and it's literally more than a third ads.
19 minutes in the daytime? Not 22?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yep.
Yeah. And so because they've committed to staying 19 minutes, that means they have less to shoot, so the actors aren't as bedraggled having to do so much work every single day. They can shoot so many a week that they get like 8 weeks paid time off, like everybody, all year. And so it keeps itself really, really good. And so
great.
It's Bold and the Beautiful specifically. I've heard every soap is actually good, so just pick one you can find and start watching. But Bold and the Beautiful, I can say without a doubt, we started watching it because we thought it would be bad and we were looking for trash TV to watch. And now we've watched over 400 episodes and it's good. It's real good.
Talking to my mom about it, she would tell you that there are bad soap operas like Passions. She never liked Passions.
Yeah.
And there are definitely times in soap operas, like storylines that are real bad. Like the time in, I think it was Days of Our Lives, where they went to a virtual Garden of Eden. Mom was not into that storyline.
That's wild.
Yeah, and if I ever say the words Days of Our Lives dead, that means a character has died but will come back later.
Yes.
That's funny.
No.
One final shout out
just like how Bill is about to be in just a second.
Yes. But one final shout out for Bold and the Beautiful before we get back to it. Bold and the Beautiful is on CBS, where only conservative people watch. Yet everyone there has been extremely vocal using their platform for Black Lives Matter, which is awesome.
Very
but
fun.
Also, there's like if you watch on CBS All Access, if you start from there, that storyline where it starts is the first trans person on daytime television.
I think I heard about
soap
that.
operas ever, and it's done really, really well, and like on brand. Like everything is like good, not in a way that like you would think the channel that has 1,700 cop shows would handle transness. They actually handle it really, really well. And it's a trans woman of color too, which is brilliant.
Fantastic.
And I love it. So shout outs to Bold and the Beautiful. They're real, real good. But Bill and Ted. Where even were we? How did we start talking about goddamn soap operas?
They just got Socrates, aka Socrates, as they exclusively call him.
Yeah, Socrates.
And then they decide. So these are very, very quick adventures, especially the Socrates one. So they're just like, well, on to the next one. So the next adventure is a little bit more elaborate. They end up going to 15th century England. This, I think this is the part where they're in the village and they're like, hey, where can we find historical personages? And the random
the peasants just point to the castle.
Yeah, the peasants are like, go that way, and they turn around and there's a giant fucking castle, and they're like, okay, yeah, there's probably something important there. Let's go talk to the king. But as Bill says, let's talk to the king, Ted is looking askance and sees off in one of the high windows these two beautiful princesses, or babes.
It's important to say the high windows are incredibly high, and the camera never zooms in to show you how they look. And he's just like, I think I'm in love, dude.
Yeah. And there's a great line where, give me 1 second. I sent it to somebody. There's a line where someone's like, Bill is like, dude, we gotta go. It's a history report, not a babe report. And Ted goes, bro, these are historical babes.
This is the Operation Babe Hunt we needed.
Seriously. Right? So they stormed the castle in order to do their assignment and also meet some historical babes. They have a bunch of fucking shenanigans. They end up wearing knight armor as a disguise, but then they realize that they're both holding sword objects. And of course they do what any two teen boys do when they're holding swords, is that they start reenacting Star Wars.
Yeah, what's awesome is they do what any teenage boys would do 5 years after Star Wars had come out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Return of the Jedi was 5 years before, which is nuts because Star Wars feels like so old and so timeless, and Bill and Ted, it feels 90s even though it's
that's true. Yeah, Bill and Ted feels like it came out in another era than Star Wars, even though it came out 5 years later.
They're contemporaries, and it doesn't feel like it. It's bonkers.
Well, that is because Star Wars, started in the 70s and very much is a 70s style of filmmaking, whereas Bill and Ted, I think what you said is right. I think it feels like 90s. So it feels like they're 2 decades apart despite being literally 5 years apart. So they're reenacting Star Wars. It's just fucking stupid. And while they're reenacting Star Wars, doing lightsaber fights and doing boom, boom, boom sounds, despite literally holding actual deadly swords, Bill tumbles down a bunch of stairs, and Ted goes to chase him, and long story short, he gets to the bottom and he sees the suit of armor on the ground, and a bunch of enemy soldiers have surrounded it, and they stab it through the heart, and they're like, haha, we killed the intruder. And then they leave, and of course Ted thinks, oh no, my friend has been killed. We of course realize it's obvious that Ted probably is no longer in the suit of armor. A bunch of bullshit happens. Turns out that's what happened.
You've called both characters Ted for the past 5 minutes.
Whoops.
You've referred to both Bill and Ted.
Ted thinks that Bill has died. We realize that Bill probably
backwards.
has not
Bill thinks that Ted has died.
Yes,
You're backwards again. Bill thinks that Ted has died.
No, that's not true.
Because Keanu is the one that comes back and hits the dude with the bat in a second to spoil the joke that you're building up to.
Okay, I just had it backwards. Well, I wasn't getting I wasn't getting the characters mixed up. I was just forgetting what happened, which is different. But anyway, eventually they find the hot babes, and they say that they have a Ted. What's funny is that Ted is like, I have a message of love, and they're like, from who? And he's like, myself. And they giggle thinking, oh, that's like a cute little thing that he just said, but he really means it's from myself, because myself told me to tell you to send his love. And then they want him to recite the message, and Bill's like, dude, tell her some poetry. And he's like, what? And he's like, song lyrics, man. Anyway, I don't know. Then their dad
just quote The prophet Peter Gabriel at them.
Well, that's the thing. I'm pretty sure at this point, they're not quoting a song. I'm pretty sure he's making up the poetry. He is making up romantic language. But in order to figure out how to do that, Bill had to be like, write song lyrics, bro.
Yeah.
And that's what allows him to, that's when he has to understand the concept, right? Anyway, a bunch of stuff happens and they get in trouble with the dad, with the king, right? And they want to kidnap him because he's an important historical personage, but he doesn't. And they almost get executed, actually. But Socrates and Billy the Kid rescue them, and then they all just escape. So this is all just a whole big shenanigans. They didn't get any new historical personages. They just escape. Importantly, I didn't catch this, but it turns out this is what happened. The time machine is damaged a little bit on the way out. So they end up in the future, where we saw earlier. And there is a hell of a scene at this point.
It's so good. It's played completely straight, and it is the most bonkers, silly thing ever. I guarantee you that after every cut, everyone busts out laughing because it is so fucking funny.
Here's the funny thing.
But
I'll get into this later. I'll get into this in my memorable moments. This scene is hilarious and dumb, and it's also like a tiny bit profound to me. But basically they learn, they meet up. Everyone is amazed to see them because it's like they're gods, they're heroes, they're what are they actually called?
The Great Ones.
The Great Ones, right?
Yes, the Great Ones.
So their Great Ones have shown up, and they're like, oh, so all the people come out and they do air guitar symbols at them. That's like
it's literally the blitzball good luck symbol turning into a religious thing.
I was wondering if y'all were going to comment on that, because that's what I thought of, obviously, because y'all know how much I loved that in FF10. Yeah, it's the same gimmick, except instead of blitzball turning into a religion,
it's their stupid
rock.
Little like high five prog rock.
Like shitty 70s prog has become a religion. So they do air guitars as their like prayer, just like the blitzball thing in FF10. And then they clearly all want Bill and Ted to speak. They all get quiet and are waiting for their Great Ones to speak. And Bill and Ted are like, "What do we say?" And then Bill is just like, "Be excellent to each other." And they're all like, "Oh, it's beautiful." And then they look at Ted, and Ted's like, "Party on, dudes." And of course, that's a very, very, very famous line from the movie, is that's their message to the future, is be excellent to each other and party on, dudes. They're like, well, we gotta go. So they get back in their time machine. And then I believe there is simply a montage of them just going and getting a shit ton of people, right?
Yeah, and so they get a bunch of people. That you get Joan of Arc, you get Freud. I think they said like, we have enough, but we're here anyways. Let's just get more. And they get Beethoven, and did they get anybody else? I think that's it.
You said Freud. They get Freud, Genghis Khan, Beethoven.
Oh, Genghis Khan, I missed.
And very importantly for the end of the movie, Abe Lincoln.
Oh,
Yes.
Abe Lincoln, that's right. So then they all now don't fit, so they've turned the TARDIS on its side, and they're just like hanging out of it like a convertible as they go through the time vortex. And they notice that it's busted, and they careen out of control, and they land in caveman times. And so they're like, well, how do we get back? So Bill gets up on top of it and sees the part that's broken, so he gets everybody there to chew gum.
Oh, this part's so gross. Oh, I hate it.
They all just like chew the gum, take it out, pass it down, and just make this big wad of gum so Bill can fix the time rotor with fucking gum. And it's gross and nasty.
They use tin cans on it too.
Yes.
Like once it's all finished, it's just a mess. It's just a horrible mess.
Yeah, but it works.
So they decide. Let's go back to our time.
I remember it was it was important. They tried to go home after Joan of Arc, who had a tiny bit more. She was right before the montage. So after Joan of Arc, they would have had their four, because they had Billy the Kid and Socrates and Napoleon and Joan of Arc. They tried to go home, but they couldn't dial San Dimas for some reason. So they're like, whatever, let's just keep dialing what we can do, and that's why they have the thing. So now they were finally able to dial San Dimas and go back. So they went back, but they were too early. Like they were like 12 hours before they needed to be there, and they saw Rufus, and Rufus was like, this is the wrong San Dimas. You need to go, instead of dialing this number, you need to dial one more to go to the right San Dimas. So because they're like, oh, we have 12 hours. He's like, no, you actually only have 2 hours. And he's like, oh man, we forgot to rewind. Well, is this the part where they see themselves?
Yeah,
or did they already,
no. This is when that happened. So they go back to the future.
For some reason, I thought we had already talked about it.
So they go back to what they think is their present. They're the night before. Then we see that whole conversation. Well, actually, we don't. They skip over it, but it's implied that then the whole conversation happens again. But now they're on the other side of it, and they tell their past selves, blah 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 blah. And then as they're about to leave, they're like, "Well, bye." Tell the princesses I said hi, blah blah blah. But then they're like, Rufus, how come we're at the wrong time? And he's like, dude, you're 1 day short. And he's like, no, it's like my watch says that it's this time. And he's like, oh, you fucker, you're however many hours off. You forgot to wind your watch. Which is when Ted then goes, hey, don't forget to wind your watch. Which is hilarious because he already knows he's not going to do it because he didn't do it. So he reminds himself to wind his watch, but then he still ends up forgetting and then has to remind himself to wind his watch. But I just realized this is really clever foreshadowing, because I bet that planted the idea in his mind of reminding himself to do things. Because here's the thing. Up until now, this has been a time travel adventure. It's had nothing to do with the concept of time travel. It's been like Doctor Who, they've been bopping around, right? But like they haven't worked with like the nature of time or paradoxes or anything. However, in the climax of the movie, that changes, and some really fucking hilariously interesting stuff happens. So anyway, they go literally 1 day later, but things have gone wrong. Also, this whole movie
what
so
happened
far.
Next? I'm fuzzy on how to get from here to the next part.
Well, actually, one important thing to cover. Actually, this whole movie, as they've been having their adventures, there've been cutaways to Napoleon. So Napoleon and Deacon, who is either Ted or Bill's younger brother, has been taking Napoleon around. He takes Napoleon to the bowling alley. He takes Napoleon to the ice cream shop, which is where he becomes a piggy wiggy or something.
A ziggy piggy,
because he eats an entire like piggy ice cream thing. Anyway, he's just having fun at this really stupid suburb, right? And it's but when they get back, they realize that Napoleon has gotten away. Napoleon got away. They're like, well, where the fuck is Napoleon? So they decide. So let's see. Oh, so at this point, they're at. Right. Here's the important thing. You're right, Sam. It is hard to do this transition. They can't just do the report right away. They have to take everybody around, right? So
because they have to know what they thought of San Dimas.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they're literally just going around the town with all these historical figures in tow. So they go to the San Dimas Mall, which, man, y'all remember malls? What a what a blast from the past.
So crazy. People used to hang out at those places.
Yeah, but at any rate, they're hanging out at the mall, and they go to where they left, or that they realize that they don't know where Napoleon is. So they're like, if we were Napoleon, where would we be? And they look at each other and they're like, Waterloo. And Waterloo has been set up earlier in the movie, but it was done very subtly, so I didn't really notice. Waterloo is the name of the local water park, and it has been established as one of Bill and Ted's character traits that they love water slides. That's just one of their things, right? They love rock music, they love being dumb, they love water slides. So here's how I read this, and this is why I think it's so funny. I think a worse writer, a smarter but worse writer, would have made the joke that they realized that Napoleon must be at Waterloo because they know that Waterloo is the famous Napoleonic battle. So, of course, Napoleon would go to the water park called Waterloo. They don't know that.
Yeah.
No,
dumb.
the fact that it's called Waterloo is a joke that is not relevant to the plot. It's an extra layer of joke. The joke is they're like, if we were a famous military general and political revolutionary from France from the 1700s, where would we be? And they're like, obviously we'd go to the fucking water park. Like, that's the joke. The fact that it's a pun on Waterloo does not register to them to a single bit, which I find that to be an extremely brilliant joke, actually.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, and the best part is that they're right. I don't think he went to the place because it was called Waterloo. He just somehow arrived at the water park. There's an amazing scene at the water park where he first of all, Napoleon is dressed in like old timey swimsuit.
Yes.
And he somehow gets to the top of the water slide, and they're like,
so I'm curious, did he bring that with him?
I was wondering about that too. Maybe he just is prepared. Maybe that's just his undies.
Yeah, I thought it was supposed to just be his underwear.
But anyway, so he gets to the top of the water slide. It's one of the enclosed water slides. And the person's like, "Go already, you're holding up the line." And he looked at it, and you can tell he's terrified because, I mean, why wouldn't you be? It's this chute that's going to go down, right? So they end up pushing him down, and then you do what every 90s extreme fun kid adventure movie does, which is it has a scene of someone going down a chute, and it's like exciting. But the funny thing is, for him, it's not exciting. He's fucking terrified. He's screaming the entire time. He's like, ah, ah, ah. But then he gets to the bottom, and he's like, oh, also, this whole movie, in all the Napoleon flashbacks, he's been like a dick. Like, he's very grumpy. He's very unhappy. He obviously wants to be back in France, leading an army and winning a war or losing it. I forget at what point they kidnapped him. Probably while he was winning. He's obviously probably scared and confused by what's happening to him, but also very angry.
He doesn't understand anything anyone is saying.
So, like, he's always yelling at people. He's, like, yelling at the bowling alley guy, yelling at the ice cream guy, being very upset, right? But when he gets to the bottom of the water slide, he finally has this big, goofy grin on his face, and he's like, that was fucking awesome, you know? I mean, he says something in French. So then there's another montage of him going on all the rides in the park and having like the best day of his life at the water park. And that montage just keeps happening until all of a sudden he comes out of one of the slides and there's Bill and Ted, and they're like, there you are. So they grab him and they leave. But when they get back to the mall, they find out that all of the other personages of historical interest have escaped. And basically they're all causing all kinds of trouble in the mall, and there's just a big fucking clusterfuck of a scene where they're running around and they're chasing them, and stupid shit is happening. I don't know.
Fun fact about this bit is, so Joan of Arc discovers jazzercise aerobics, and it's extremely great because Joan of Arc is played by the lead guitarist for the Go-Go's. So
I kind of thought I recognized her, honestly.
Yeah. And so she's being the Go-Go's everywhere, and it's fucking great. And Beethoven basically ends up in Guitar Center, just fucking hammering on all the keyboards.
He's fucking shredding those keyboards.
Yeah. Where does Lincoln end up? I'm trying to remember what everybody's little shtick in the.
Lincoln ends up in a historical photo place.
Yeah, and
a guy's trying to take his hat, saying that it belongs to the photo studio, and Lincoln's like, "No, it's my hat. This is my hat."
Also,
And then
Go-Go's lady, it should be noted, is fucking hot.
yeah,
Yeah, she is.
She's-
cute.
she's great.
Genghis Khan ends up in a sporting goods store.
Oh yeah.
He sets his big club aside and picks up a metal bat, and he's real into that.
Yeah, like he's like, holy he's like testing the weight of it, and he's like, oh, I could fuck some. This is an amazing weapon. What is this? Some sort
I
of
could conquer China with this.
But then he notices a mannequin behind him, and his animal, his warrior instincts kick in because he thinks that someone has come up behind him to attack him. So he starts wailing on this mannequin, and then he just starts getting in a fight with everybody, in the store. So all the characters are having a bad time. The only character who doesn't do anything bad, funny enough, is Beethoven. All Beethoven does is, what does Socrates do?
Wait,
Socrates
goes ice skating.
That's right.
Socrates goes ice skating. He and Billy the Kid also end up
trying to hit
on some girls.
It doesn't work though.
And then Sigmund Freud comes up behind them and says something. I can't remember what he says, but the girls laugh and call him a geek.
Yeah, and he goes, "What is geek?" He's so upset about it.
Yeah, and Socrates goes, "Geek."
And anyway, so
it's a happy time.
Beethoven's little subplot here is that he wanders into like a fucking Guitar Center or something, and the person who is this is actually interesting because they never make clear exactly how much these characters can understand, because obviously Beethoven would be speaking German.
He's also deaf.
Well, yeah, not at this point, probably. But
they make deaf jokes though.
Is he deaf?
When they come to kidnap him, he's playing for Elise on the piano. They break in. Everyone's like, "Oh my god!" And Beethoven doesn't notice until they just come up and they grab him and put him in the TARDIS. Because he's deaf.
But then why would he be reacting to how cool the keyboard sounds? Well, whatever.
Because deaf people can play music. That's why one of the most famous pianists of all time is a deaf person.
But he's impressed by the cool synth sounds of the keyboard. He wouldn't be able to hear the sounds if he was deaf. That's the whole joke. He's in the Guitar Center, and the guy's like, It's
inconsistent. Like, I think they make deaf jokes, but also make classical pianist jokes.
I didn't notice the deaf jokes, but anyway, maybe it's just inconsistent. But anyway, so he's in the Guitar Center, and the person walks up, and they're like, he's like touching a keyboard, and they're like, "Oh, are you a musician?" And again, he's not deaf here because he kind of like laughs to himself. That's why I think maybe he did, because it actually would probably be pretty reasonable that this character would understand English, because people, back in old-timey Europe often spoke multiple languages because of their education, right? So they're like, "Are you a musician?" And I read it as him understanding what the guy says. He's like, "Well, am I a musician?" Right? And then the guy's like, "I think you might like this." So he shows him a keyboard where, like, it's one of those things where you hit one key and it does like an auto arpeggiate thing with like beats. And Beethoven is like, "Holy shit, that's so cool." And then as the scene progresses, it shows that he's now surrounded himself with like 6 different keyboards. And again,
he basically makes a Phil Collins drum set out of keyboards.
Yeah. So then he's basically playing like early to mid period Beethoven-y stuff. I mean, it really sounds more like Mozart-y, so that's why I'm saying it's like early period, like contrapuntal stuff. But he's doing it on these synth keyboards and doing all these like layers. Actually, he's kind of playing them the way you would play like an organ, because organs have multiple layers of keys. So he's just rocking out and doing the best fucking like prog rock keyboard solos ever, because to him that's like he's playing classical music but with these keyboards, and the crowd gathers around him and they're all cheering because they're like, "This is the best shit we've ever heard. This is awesome." So all these people are gathered around him cheering. And what's funny about this is that all of these characters' various adventures, eventually the cops end up getting called on all of them. So then there's a bunch of scenes of the cops rounding them up, catching Genghis Khan, getting Socrates, getting Freud, and putting handcuffs on them. And it makes sense. They're causing, other than like fuck cops, but like they're causing a lot of trouble, right? But the only trouble Beethoven caused was like being too good at keyboard, I guess. It's kind of like in 90s rap music videos where the plot of every rap video is like, the cops are after me for being too good at rap.
He committed the heinous crime of wearing a ruffly shirt.
Yeah.
Yes, crimes against fashion. But yeah, so anyway, they all end up getting arrested and taken to the police station, except for Bill and Ted and Napoleon. I think it might just be those three are the only ones that don't get took. Whatever. They have to rescue all or most of them from the police station becomes the next big thing. And of course, who's the head of the police station? Ted's crappy dad. Ted's dad is the reason why they got locked up instead of just released with a warning or something like that, right? No, they are all in jail. So then they realize that they have to do it. Oh, important subplot that's been going on through this entire movie. At the beginning of the movie, Ted's dad is like, "Hey, where are my keys? Ted, have you seen my keys, son?" And Ted's like, "No, Dad, I had no idea where your keys are." And he's like, "I can't believe my shitty son lost my keys." So the dad's like convinced that his keys are gone and it's Ted's fault, which is really jerky, right? And then it actually comes back a couple times throughout the movie. Like at one point, we skipped over this, but at one point Ted is grounded and has to stay at home. So Bill calls the house phone and he's like, he has a deep voice. He's like, Officer Logan, this is Officer Van Halen down at the station. We have your keys. And the funny thing is the dad is like, "Oh, you have my keys?" And he's like, "Yeah, come get them." So he leaves. So like,
that is as dumb as his kid.
I like how that's like the dumbest plan ever, but it actually works. So anyway, so they have to find some way to rescue all. Oh, this whole time the time is a ticking. It's not that this isn't like the morning of the school day. This is like early afternoon of the school day. They're missing school because turns out they're not just giving a report in front of their class. Turns out the history teacher made a whole fucking event out of these history reports where like literally the whole school is at an assembly and they're watching all of the people give the reports on a stage, which to me seems like it's borderline like child abuse, because that's got to be humiliating for the people who don't have good reports, right? Like, hey, go up in front of the entire
It's also child
school.
abuse because making anybody sit through listening to a history report is cruel and unusual punishment.
Especially the kind of, the way you learn history in high school. There's a reason why everyone thinks history is the most boring subject. It's because they teach it in such a sanitized way in order to uphold America's terrible myths that it not only is it problematic and colonialist and all that stuff, but it's also boring.
Yeah, it's squeaky clean.
But anyway, so the clock is ticking, right? They are scheduled to go last because of dramatic filmmaking reasons. So you're getting all these cuts away to other people giving their reports as the clock gets ticking, and the teacher.
There's one that's my favorite, where it's obviously like the most popular kid in school, like
like a football jock,
leather jacket, and he just catches tail in him and goes, "So what would Joan of Arc think of San Dimas? She'd probably think it'd be pretty cool. I know I do." And then everyone stands up and cheers.
Yeah, like he obviously just gave a terrible report. And also another one of them is like, actually, I couldn't tell if this is the same character or a different character because he looked very similar. But his report was bad, and then he was just like, San Dimas Panthers rock, and everyone's like, yeah, or whatever the name of the football team is.
Yeah. It was a different kid. It was just another football player.
Similar looking guy, yeah. So anyway, so the whole time the history teacher keeps like, there's like a panning shot of her looking down, of him. Is it her or him? I can't remember. Looking down the list of the students. And at the very end of the list is Bill and Ted, right? And the teacher keeps looking like, are they going to show up or not?
And at one point, he even pre-writes in their Fs.
Oh yeah,
Like,
that's right. The teacher
he
actually
already
just writes.
knows.
He's like, yeah, they're gonna get Fs, right? So anyway, they have to break them out of the building, and this is where shit gets so fucking good, because the first thing they need to do is they're outside of the police station, and they realize, how are we going to break these guys out if we don't have the keys? And then Ted is like, ugh, my dad's been complaining for 2 days that he can't find his keys. And then maybe, I forget which of them, but one of them, maybe Bill, says, what if we went back in time to before he lost the keys and stole the keys? And then, but then Ted is like, we don't have time to do that. We have to do it right now. And then they, again, and I think this is actually brilliant writing, that like the writers room must have felt really smart for thinking of this clever twist on time travel. One of them says, let's just remember to do it later. Like, after we finish our report,
do it after
the movie's over, after the presentation, let's just go back and do all of this later. And he's like, okay, where are we going to put the keys? And he looks off to his left to the shrubbery, and he goes, and then he reaches off screen, and then he reaches his hand back, and he's got the keys, and he goes, let's put them right here. So now they've realized, and the thing is, to me, this is like perfectly solid logic. It's a stable time loop. Like, all they gotta do. So then this whole sequence is, they need something to happen, and then they just remember. They're like, remember to do that later, and then it happens.
This part of the movie is basically one of my favorite arcs of Homestuck, is when Dave does this exact thing where he'll be like having a conversation with somebody. He's like, wait, hold on, I just remembered I have a stable time loop I need to do. And he like leans out the window and gives himself a thumbs up, and then he goes back to whatever he was talking about.
Yeah.
That's basically what they
He's
keep
just
doing.
like, oh, I gotta
this.
make sure these loops close.
Yeah, this is the kind of thing that I really like about time travel stories. Like, Futurama does this, Looper, obviously. I mean, that's why they're called loopers, because they're closing a loop. It's done like in such a way that you don't see it happening, but you know it's happening, and it's really funny.
Yeah, but now they essentially have magical powers, because they can just will anything to existence as long as they can go, as long as they remember to go back and do it later, which is extremely funny. So I believe the tricks that they use are they remember, hey, there is one even better. It gets even better. It's not just a stable time loop. It's also an interesting informational loop, because the second thing, they're like, how do we distract my dad? And Bill's like, how about you later remember to go and get a tape recorder and record yourself saying stuff, and then put it over, and then plant it like earlier, a couple days ago, in the police station, and put it on a timer for checks his watch, 2:43 p.m. But then Ted says, but what do I say? And then before he even decides what to say, you hear the tape recorder, and the tape recorder goes, Dad, I'm over here. Come over here, Dad. And see, that's hilarious, because that's where he got the idea of what to say. Is from hearing the tape recorder. Eli, what are the other things that they do with this whole future memory loop?
So there was a piece of paper sticking out of a typewriter that they're reading, and at the end of it, it says, P.S. Duck, and they're like, duck. And they duck down, like, right as some guy's getting up from his desk.
Yeah, and like, would have seen them. Yeah. Oh, I forgot that one. And then the last one is their dad they release, I think they only do it 4 times. So they release everyone. So they're stealthing around. They're stealthing around the police station pretty successfully, TBH. It's not one of those, like, how would no one see them? It's like, actually, you kind of see why no one sees them. It's because most people are just, like, looking at their computers, and they just kind of slink around, right? So anyway, so they get to like underneath the police station where there's all the jail cells, and they let everybody out. But then the dad shows up, and the dad is like, Ted, at this point the stakes have been raised actually, because it turns out that he's already signed his son up for military school. So he's literally like, your flight's leaving tonight. Like, it's, and prom's tomorrow, So anyway, so the dad's about to get them and they're trying to get away. And then Ted just looks up at the ceiling and he goes, remember a trash can. And then all of a sudden a trash can just falls out of the ceiling onto his
It says something like Wild Stalin's rule.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Like that,
yeah. The trash can says like Wild Stalin's rule, and I guess it falls out of just like it falls from off screen. But I'm imagining like, I don't know, a fucking air vent or something. So he just like he instantly is able to materialize a trash can just because he's like, remember to put a trash can there.
Yeah. Like, I'm just picturing it like he's like blipping into existence and then.
Yeah,
and then blipping out of existence. There's a Simpsons, one of their Treehouse of Horror episodes where Bart and Milhouse get a watch that can stop time, and so they use it to play pranks on people. And like one of the things they do is like they go to Homer's office and they keep stealing donuts from him. But it's just like he's got a donut, and the next second he doesn't have a donut anymore. And it just keeps going on like that until he goes to try and kill himself. Like he's got a knife, and they replace it with like a rubber knife.
Oh my god, that's so fucking funny.
So I'm picturing it like that. Like it's just blipping into existence.
Yeah.
For no reason.
Yeah. So anyway, so they escape. And there's not much left in the movie. I mean, there's, again, the teacher is wrapping up the school assembly, and she's like, there was supposed to be one more presentation, but they didn't show up, so I guess y'all can all, end your school year, a few minutes early. And everyone's like, yay! So they're getting up to leave, but then all the lights dim. And then there is just... it turns out that Wild Stallions are on the stage, right? And that the curtain lifts and it's the two of them and all their historical personages. And they just have this extremely long sequence of them giving like the most badass presentation ever, right? Where what I love about the presentation is it's not just that, they have all the historical figures up on the stage, which, the teachers are probably like, oh, I guess they got their friends to wear costumes, right? Which still, if I was a teacher, they went
to the local Society for Creative Anachronism and asked them to come by.
Yes. Here's the thing, though, if I was a teacher, I'd be really impressed by that. I'd be like, wow, these kids thought of a really creative and new and elaborate way to do their report. That's great.
Either that, or they'd be like, "Oh, they're putting extra jazz on it to try and."
Well, that's the funny thing is you also see that they know their shit now. They actually do, which is crazy. Like, Bill will be he'll say something like, "My next guest is, is Socrates or is Joan of Arc," and then he'll say,
they actually called him Socrates.
That's right.
That's
right. They pronounce it right. But then he'll say Joan of Arc did blah 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 and blah blah blah. So it shows that apparently off screen, or over the course of their adventure. Oh yeah. Also, this entire movie, while they're running around, Bill is holding his history book, his textbook, in his arms, which is he uses it as a weapon at one point. He hits the guy with it. But yeah, so you see that not only did they do an amazing presentation, but they also actually do know their history, and they give this amazing thing. Do you remember any particular highlights from this? I really don't. I mean, it's a lot, right?
Napoleon shows his grand plan of putting water slides in Europe.
That's right. He's got this entire war board out, and he's showing all of his troop movements on what do you call it, like a war table, right? And then behind him he's got like a big board with a map of Europe on it, and he's showing all the troop movements, and then he points at one of them, and it's this big squiggly line, and he goes, "Water slides."
Water slides.
Let's see. Who else does some things? Let's see. Genghis. What does Genghis Khan do? I don't remember. Oh,
he just like swings a naginata around and.
Yeah, while again they actually explain why he's cool. Here's a really important one. His dad shows up, and as Ted's dad shows up, it turns out that Sigmund Freud is giving his presentation. And Sigmund Freud's presentation is that Ted, he's psychoanalyzing, he's doing psychoanalysis on Ted. So Ted is laying down, like, I guess they got this on the stage. He's laying down in like a therapist's couch, and Sigmund Freud is like, your dad is your dad is projecting, his sense of self-hatred and his disappointment in himself onto his kid, and that's why he pushes you so hard. It's actually a lot, like, obviously that's pretty simple and straightforward, like that's a very common problem that parents do with their kids. But like Freud's explanation is about 5 times as long as that, and it's actually like it's really good and detailed, and he's basically like, here's the problems with your dad and why it's not your fault. And of course the dad hears that and is like, oh, like kind of a touching moment. And after he finishes saying all that, Ted sits up and he's like, whoa. And then Sigmund Freud, remember this? Sigmund Freud turns to Bill and he's like, would you like to go next? And Bill's like, nah, I'm cool. I just got a minor Oedipal complex. Which is
it's such a good joke.
It's outstandingly funny. Like, a few things. A, like, Freud did invent the Oedipal complex. B, it's the punchline of the whole thing with Missy, the whole movie. But also, like, of course, again, like you said earlier, the joke is that Bill knows what an Oedipal complex is. Which is so fucking funny.
It's great.
So they do the presentation, and I forget how it ends. It does not end with musical number. That's the next one.
It ends with Abraham Lincoln giving a speech.
That's right.
And he says he starts it out like the Emancipation Proclamation, 407 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And he ends it with, be excellent to each other. Party on,
Party on, dudes. And everyone's clapping. It's like the best presentation ever. And then they all pile into the TARDIS in the middle of the stage and fucking zap out of the present, which everyone, in the presentation is thinking, like, that's the most amazing special effect we've ever seen. Like, it's like smoke. It just looks like a rock show, right? One cute thing that I found sad was that they start chanting, "We want more. We want more." Like, they obviously want an encore, but they don't get the encore.
No encore for you.
Which is too bad. But yeah, so that's it.
They've got to go back and fix all the potential paradoxes they create.
Yeah, they got to remember to go do all that stuff, right? I got to say, if I was in this movie, I would not have succeeded because I have really bad ADHD and also maybe even some memory problems that aren't directly related to my ADHD, so I would not have remembered to do the stuff. It would not have worked.
Fuck it, I'll do it later. Oops,
I forgot. Though
I procrastinated too hard.
I procrastinated so hard that I caused the time paradox. I destroyed the space-time continuum like the Time Devourer, which is a reference to a game that you haven't played. And I won't say what game it is.
Okay.
Because I don't want to spoil it.
Is it Chrono Cross?
I'm not going to tell you what it is. I've played lots of games you haven't played.
I have not played a lot of games.
Yeah,
it's true,
and I don't want to spoil it. So anyway,
all right,
fine. Maybe one day you'll find out, or maybe you'll never find out. Who knows? I mean, depending on if you played the game or not.
When we're 87 years old and we're still doing this podcast,
you'll play some game and you'll be like, "Oh, that's the game that Maddie spoiled. It's 60 years ago." You see, you would remember that because you don't have the same memory problems as me. Meanwhile, I can't even remember that manga that Sam spoiled like a month ago. Sam predicted that I was going to forget, and he was right. Good job, Sam. I forgot the manga that you spoiled. That's good. So anyway, after that, that's pretty much it. Just denouement. What happens at the end of this damn movie?
The princesses show up again.
That's right. Rufus shows up, and he's like, "Hey,"
with the princesses.
Yeah, Rufus is like, "Hey, good." Oh, turns out they did get an A+. They did get an A+. The band does get to continue all the good stuff. And then he's like, "Hey guys, I went back into the past. These princesses weren't going to be in an arranged marriage that they sucked. They really didn't want to do. I decided to take them to the present and give them over to you to be like your weird concubines."
Totally not fucking up the time stream.
Well, he didn't. He doesn't fuck up the time stream. Remember, because he says, "Actually, I had to do this." And he goes, and they're like, "Why?" And he's like, "Well," and he shows them the Wild Challenge album cover, and he's like, "Because they're in the band."
So it
turns out it's a historical necessity that they're in the band, but it's just like these people are from the medieval times. They don't understand anything about the world. They're essentially going to have to be like kept concubines of these guys, because like they don't have a family, they can't exist in this modern world. What the fuck are they gonna do? Anyway, then again,
why must you analyze everything with your relentless logic, Maddie?
Then again, they do speak English, so and they're clearly a lot smarter than Bill and Ted. So maybe they can just figure.
Oh God, yeah.
Maybe Bill and Ted are just like, "Yeah, this is a phone, this is a car. Oh, we're in this thing called America," and maybe they're just like, "Okay." So the four of them
will figure it out.
So they decide to join the band, and then Rufus also gives them some fucking sick guitars. He's like, "Here's some guitars, they're really cool." And then he's like, "I only have one more request." And he's like, "What?" "Oh, actually, there's an important scene before this. Before Rufus shows up again, after they have succeeded in saving the day, but before anything else has happened, they're sitting back in their rooms, right? And one of them says something. Oh, they're trying to record the video again, right? And then one of them, I believe it's Bill, said, "Here's the thing, the characters are very similar. Like, they're not particularly distinguished personality-wise." So
here, I'll help you out. Bill is blonde.
No, I know which one's which physically. I can't remember which one does which action. Because they're so similar. So one of them says the line of dialogue about like, "Man, we went through this excellent adventure. We got an A+. I'm not going to Alaska, but it feels like nothing's changed," because they're still just struggling to record the video and they really suck at guitar, right? And the other one looks and he's like, "I think maybe we need to," he goes, "You know what? I think maybe we need to learn to play." So we see that they have had a little bit of an arc here. They've learned that, well, also more importantly, they've learned that like the future of the world depends on their music, and they're very encouraged by this. And then they realize, you know what? There's no secret. We can't cheat by having a good video or getting Van Halen or getting good guitars. We just need to be diligent and actually learn how to play and take this seriously, which is cool, because at the beginning of the movie, they were obviously slackers, right? So they learned we need to be slightly less slackers. Like, I'm sure they're going to slack off in school because they don't care about school, but they're like, we have a duty, right? So they commit themselves to their music. They commit themselves to being the best they can for the sake of the future, which I think is really a little touching. Anyway, then all this stuff shows up, and then Rufus does give them the sick guitars, and they're like, "Nice." And then Rufus is like, can I jam with y'all?" And they're like, "Can you play?" And he's like, I can play a little." And he gives him the guitar, and of course, this is gonna happen, but he busts out like a sick fucking solo, right? He fucking shreds it, and the two of them are like, "Holy cow, you're amazing." he fucking just totally rips in a new one, right? And then they start to play, and the music kind of swells, and they all look at each other, and one of the princesses is on keys, the other princess is on drums, and they're getting so excited. Again, this is the climax of the movie, so they're about to end in a big, musical number, and the girl hits them off 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they start playing, and they're fucking terrible.
So god-awful.
They're absolutely horrible. There's no rhythm. I don't know what the chords are supposed to be. They're just noodling around doing fucking nothing. And then Rufus, of course, looks at the camera and he goes, "I promise they do get better." And then it cuts to credits, and that's the fucking movie. It's
so
a good movie. Eli, did I forget anything from the ending scene? I don't think I forgot anything from that ending scene.
No, in fact, this podcast is longer than the movie.
Yep.
Nice. Nailed it. Good job, team. That's pretty.
I don't think
pretty normal.
I don't think the movie stops to talk about Days of Our Lives and Bold and the Beautiful for 25 minutes in the middle.
No.
So
that's pretty normal.
That was a mistake on my part. I should not have encouraged that.
I've been listening to a podcast recently. It's actually not a podcast itself. It's a sub-series of an existing podcast called This Is Sus, where they review just shitty NBC primetime dramas, like This Is Us. And yeah, like, those are hour-long dramas. Every episode is like an hour and a half or 2 hours. Although those shows are bad, whereas this movie is good. Let's do some memorable moments. Sam, what are yours?
So, let me see. So one, you might have brought it up because I was AFK during it, but so when it's Freud's turn and in the oral report, Ted lays out and it's like giving Ted therapy live on stage in front of everybody.
However, it's so funny that you should just tell us again because you like this scene too.
It's so good. And so after they finish with Ted, everybody cheers, and he like points to Bill, like, "Bill, you want to lay down?" He goes, "Nah, I'm good. I already know I have a minor Oedipal complex."
Yeah, that is extremely fucking. That was one of the biggest laughs of the whole movie. IMO. What else you got?
Missy at one of her scenes is listening to the exact same FM radio headphones that I had growing up. Just mine were blue and hers are bright pink. But they're the big, ugly, clunky things if you want to listen to the FM radio as headphones constantly. Which
they're like very rectangular. Like, I thought they were cool as shit. I was like, "Ooh, I want those."
Yeah, they're really cool. The radio is garbage, so I would have my phone in my pocket with one of those little FM transmitters in my pocket so that I could have wireless headphones. That's how I would use those.
Nice.
But yeah, I just loved seeing that blast from the past. I'd completely forgotten that I even had those growing up until I saw her wearing them, and I'm like, oh shit. I remember how lit it was to have fucking radio waves beamed into your ears. Let's see. We talked about most of mine as they came up because this was a lot less structured of an episode than we normally do.
Yeah, a lot of mine too. I just deleted all the ones we already talked about and only have 2 left.
Yeah, because I already talked about how the camera never zooms in on the princesses when they're like, "Oh look, those faraway princesses
they're so beautiful,
so hot."
Yeah. And this was
so
before
good.
HD, so those are some standard definition princesses up there.
Oh, speaking of the princesses, just as a general aside, it's a memorable moment of like every movie that's ever come out. But the falsehood that Hollywood sells us that medieval girls were hot is so beautiful. And I just love, like, these princesses as well are just so fucking pretty, even though there are realistic paintings made at the time, and everyone was fucking ugly back then.
Yeah, because they never showered.
Like,
they had terrible hair. Their teeth were even more crooked than usual because remember, they're not just old timey; they're also British. So that's like
they didn't have orthodontia.
Yeah. So yeah, no, they would not be hot. They hadn't discovered skincare.
Not at all. but like
Or
these
estrogen
these
pills.
girls look great. The fucking
The ladies in this movie are hot across the board.
yeah. Oh, so we talked about it, but we skipped over the scene. So there's one part of this movie that doesn't age well, and it's the only negative joke. Like even without the slur in it, it's a negative joke, and it's the only one of the movie, so it would stick out anyways. But after Ted dies and then comes back, they're so happy to see each other that they hug, and then they push each other away, and they drop the F bomb at each other, which like is weird because the movie's so positive elsewhere that they would be like, oh yeah, like we're positive and free love, just not free two dude love, and push each other away, and it stuck out, and it was weird, and we mentioned it earlier and then forgot to talk about it.
Funny enough, it happened so fast, I would not have even noticed it if Sam hadn't already mentioned it in the chat. Because I actually didn't pick.
I'm the one who mentioned it into the chat.
Well, Sam had mentioned it earlier, actually, as well.
Oh, had he?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, because I'd already gotten and it's funny because you know, like sometimes a character in a movie says a line and you just don't quite pick up what they said, right? Because maybe you were distracted or whatever. So they said,
I was watching this while I was working, by the way, and just all of a sudden they say that, and I'm like,
yeah.
What?
So for me, I legitimately didn't get what they said, and I probably would not have. I was like, should I push the space bar and back up and hear what they said? And I was like, nah. And then I remembered what Sam had said in the chat, and I was like, oh, that's what they said.
Yeah.
I actually find it a very cute joke, problematic language notwithstanding, because it's like the classic joke is that two dudes hug and they're like, oh, no homo. But this is actually a little bit better because they hug and then they're literally hugging and then saying gay, right? Like imagine you hug your homie and then after you hug you're like, yo, that was gay, dude. Right?
I feel like that works, but I feel like that works better if the guys who are hugging are gay or queer.
It is funny when they're actually gay. Yes, I mean I do that all the time with my gals.
With my other LGBT friends, we often yell gay at each other.
Oh yeah. I was talking with Bernard one time, and I was like, Bernard, do cis gays just constantly say that they're gay when they're hanging out with other gays? And he's like, yeah, we do. And I was like, okay, cool, because the trans girls definitely do it, and I wasn't sure if y'all did it too.
Oh no, yeah, like it's from back before my transition when I identified as either bisexual or a lesbian, depending on the time of day,
depending on how much you had ate that day.
That particular moment. We said it a lot.
But yeah, it's always just like my friend will be like, oh, you look great today, and I'll be like, you're gay, shut the fuck up. And I'm like, that's gay.
Yeah.
That's a weird scene, and it's funny that we forgot to talk about it. One of mine, speaking of gay, maybe this wasn't on purpose, maybe I was reading too much into this, but they definitely made Joan of Arc gay.
Oh yeah.
Right?
She's like famously gay.
Actually,
like they were being historical
famously, she's who knows. It's the idea that she may have been queer is really more of one of those things where modern queer theorists look back at historical figures and say maybe they were queer. And I'm not saying that those queer theorists are making shit up and that they're wrong. I'm saying that there's really no evidence either way.
Yeah.
But it's like, queer people have always existed, so it stands to reason that historical people in the past, some of them probably were queer, right? So you look back and you're like, maybe, right? But anyway, the point is, in the scene where she's in the mall and she's looking, first of all, she's, she is famous for dressing like a man, right? She did it for pragmatic reasons, and she said she did it for pragmatic reasons, but they still burned her at the stake for heresy. So who knows? Maybe she was doing it for pragmatic reasons, Mulan style, or maybe she had some gender stuff going on. Who knows, right? But anyway, So she's in the aerobics class, and she's looking at the ladies, the strong, lean, muscular ladies up on the stage doing the aerobics, and she definitely is giving them gay eyes, right?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Like,
she
she does a fucking lip bite. She's looking at her, and she's like, "Oh my!" And I'm like, "That rules." I understand. I know what that look is. She is a lesbian. So I thought that was a really nice little subtle moment there. Do I have any other ones? At the very beginning of the movie, one of the whole just, "oh, these guys are dumb" lines, right? So after Bill doesn't know who Napoleon was, the teacher then calls on Ted, and he's like, "Ted, who was Joan of Arc?" And Ted goes, Noah's wife.
Yes.
But that's actually a setup for a better joke later. After they're leaving the school, after learning they have to get an A+ on their assignment, Ted goes, "I don't know anything about history. The only thing I do know is that Joan of Arc was not Noah's wife." And then Bill goes, "Well, then who is Noah's wife?"
Noah's wife.
Which is so fucking funny. And then also they say something about George Washington. I actually didn't write this. There was a really funny line about George Washington. I wrote down that there was a funny line about George Washington, but didn't say what the line was. Sam, do you have any little moments you can say while I remember this joke?
You mean Eli? I already did mine.
Oh, nice. Right. Eli, do you have any?
We've already talked about all of mine, and we're at almost 2 hours. So.
Oh, wow. Damn. Yeah. Well, I can't remember the George Washington joke, so who gives a shit? This movie owns. That's all I have to say about... Oh, wait. I'm sorry. I have one final... I'll keep it... I'm going to literally set a timer. I'm going to do a 1-minute rant. I actually found this movie a little bit poignant when they go to the future, because it's a beautiful scene. First of all, Chrono Trigger. Mm-hmm. They're saving the world from a bad future. They're saving the world from something terrible happening. In this movie, they're ensuring that the good thing happens. The utopian future already exists, and they're just making sure that it doesn't not exist. The whole movie's very hopeful and positive about humanity. Of course, it does that in some ways by glossing over things like, horrible atrocities, but like whatever. And I feel like when they go to the future, they realize, oh, humanity can achieve this perfect state. We can be part of it. We can contribute to society. All of these adventures that everyone has, all of these heartbreak that every person throughout history has always had, is part of a long narrative that can have a good ending. I don't know. I thought it was powerful. 5 seconds left to go. I'm done.
Yeah. The movie's good. Everyone should go watch it. It is literally $1 to rent on YouTube or Google Play.
It fucking
or Amazon. So definitely worth $1. Join us next week where we will play the first case of Danganronpa.
Oh boy.
Eli, you had bowed out before we got to tell you. There's no good way to make this first episode not longer than the rest, because there's a prologue, but the prologue would not be good to play by itself. So you got to do the prologue and case one.
So a little bit beefy this week. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's so good you will fly through it. I remember like being so upset at the end of the prologue that I had to finish case one.
Love to be upset.
Yeah, so we'll be doing case one of Danganronpa next week. Come in, hang out with us. Instead of plugging my Ko-Fi this week, I want to tell everyone to go and check out this game. It is called the Orion Legacy. I'm pulling it up right now. Damn it! Why do we talk so much about Bill and Ted in the host chat when I'm trying to find a fucking link? Yeah, there it is. It is called Orion Legacy of the Kori Odon. It is a Tales of inspired RPG by, for, and about Africans, which is real cool, real good. It is. I have not played it. I have purchased it, but I have not played it yet. but all of the reviews are like, the combat is really freaking deep and they don't tell you a goddamn thing. So just like flail around until it starts to click. But if you like deep action RPGs and want to amplify Black voices, that's a really cool way to do it. I will be playing through it soon and would love to chat with you guys about it in our Discord, which there's a link for it you can get to at www.rpgbook.club and come and talk to us about that game because it's real good. I was trying to fit in doing episodes about it, but we are recording 2 podcasts right now to catch up one long cast. So instead it'll be an unofficial thing and we'll just all talk about how great it is because it's great. So everyone go and purchase this game. It is a rare opportunity for people in the JRPG space to amplify Black voices. It's the only for by about Black people game that I know of.
Yeah.
Which is real cool. But other than that, this has been RPG Book Club Movie Nights, and I have been Sam Allman.
I'm Elias Sailor Eli Warren.
I'm Maddie Grace Weapon. Be excellent to each other.
And party on,
Party
dudes.
on, dudes.
Also, what I love, speaking more Doctor Who, I guess this is a Doctor Who cast today, but
please no.
Yeah, I agree.